You need to do your rotator cuff exercise exactly like this to make it work your rotator cuff. Right, so obviously this is something that you hear all the time. Someone says, I'm training my rotator cuff with my rotator cuff exercise. And is this true? Is there only one exercise that trains it and other ones don't? So if you're doing like a shoulder press or a bench press, that doesn't train your rotator cuff. Well, I've got news for you. It's not true. Your rotator cuff work all the time when you move your arm. In fact, even at rest, technically it's still working. They are trying to stabilize the joint in the socket and obviously keep it centered and keep it in good congruency and so on. So it's kind of working to lesser and greater degrees all the time. And therefore there isn't one exacting way to train your rotator cuff. The rotator cuff might have problems in different positions. And obviously we've got to remember the rotator cuff is a group of muscles and therefore tendons, and it's not the same in every single way. Now what's interesting is there was a study here where they were looking at different angles of abduction, which is the out to the side movement of your shoulder. And they were looking at different positions within the forward to back kind of positioning of that abduction to see what actually targeted the rotator cuff best. So they looked at 3 different positions. They looked at pure abduction, which is completely out to the side. Yep. They looked at 30 degrees in front of that, which is called scaption plane. And they looked at 30 degrees further in front of that as well, which obviously is somewhere in between scaption and flexion. They used electromyography, EMG, to work out what the activation of the muscles were in these various positions. They took measurements of 8 different muscles in the shoulder. And they did this on 14 healthy individuals, and they did this at 50% maximum contraction strength. So what did they find with all of these 3 different positions? Was there a better position to train the rotator cuff or target the rotator cuff? Basically, they found that the rotator cuff themselves worked very similarly in all 3 planes of motion. There was only differences in other muscles, not the cuff. Now this could still be relevant because obviously if the load is the load and you're lifting that load and there's another muscle which is working a bit harder in one position, then the cuff would obviously have to work less to do that job. Bear in mind that EMG still showed that they worked similarly in all positions. The only differences therefore were the middle delt worked a bit harder, 5% harder in the pure abduction plane, and 4% lower in the scapular plus 30 degree plane, so the more forward position plane. And the upper trapezius worked 6% lower in that same plane of movement as well. So this shows you with abduction, the cuff worked the same in all positions, so therefore out to the side, slightly in front, slightly forward, whatever, all of it's the same. It all works the cuff very similarly. Now obviously they didn't look at all other positions as well, in terms of external rotation, slightly out to the side and so on, but the cuff do work in all positions. And the key here is that it's trying to target where problems lie. If someone is weak in a position or if someone's painful in a position, that would be the area to target. Now that doesn't mean you couldn't target some basic external rotation by your side initially, but it couldn't end there. You would have to move into the problem area. If someone's getting pain because of a rotator cuff problem and their pain is sort of with their arm up here, you should train it here because obviously here is where the problem lies. Equally, if they have a problem down there, then they should train there instead. So this has got to be specific to where the problem lies, and the cuff will be trained either way. And no matter what you do, load-wise, progression of load and tolerance of load is going to be the way forward. So don't get too bogged down about saying, oh, I'm training the rotator cuff with this exact exercise. That's a rotator cuff exercise. Yes, there are certain positions that can slightly emphasize it a little bit more, but these abduction positions from this research show that abduction through these forward to back positions doesn't really make a lot of difference. So anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time.
Perfect.